welcome to episode 88 of A Gamer Looks at 40. I'm Bill Tucker, and in the midst of this month-long exploration of Earthbound, we've covered a ton of different topics and ideas and really mined the depths of what makes Earthbound a celebrated classic. Now, in case you're unaware of what the process was, I've said it before on the show, but I'll say it again, just in case this is your first experience with this podcast. This was meant to be one episode to kind of bridge series, and it turned into a month. And every interview I did, in my brain tacked on more and more and more information where I knew this was going to have to be a full exploration. But towards the end of my interviews back in May/June of this year, a small theme crept up that started from a little idea to a big thought. And it was first introduced by Mustin on May 23rd, 2023. At the tail end of our conversation, Mustin shared the following.
The fandom is something else. There are very excellent, well, let's just say there are some very enthusiastic fandoms from StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Pokemon, all kinds of stuff. But there was something very specific and special about this Mother Earthbound fandom, especially here in the United States, that pushed so hard that I think it really was this group of ragtag grassroots kids that really helped. Because, I mean, was his name Itoi? Itoi is the name of the creator. Yeah, he had no idea that the game was liked at all in the United States, like because it was such an abysmal failure. Nuts. But for sure, a bunch of kids from the United States to go to Japan and bring a bunch of their Earthbound related fan art and musics. And show and share, like he had no idea that there were so many people that loved his stuff, and they still are pushing for Mother 3, and it's I haven't seen anything like it. I was involved in it before I've actually played the game, and I don't even know how to explain it, but I do know, like, I met Toby Fox before Undertale, like, officially came out. I think it was still like the beta for the Kickstarter or something. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know anything.
Right.
And
right.
It's probably a good thing, because I don't know, I may have totally geeked out on him. I've never really been starstruck. I know that I would be starstruck for Donald Glover, and then I just have so many things I would like to ask Toby Fox for which he would have no answer. But I met him, and he, he was hugely influenced by this game. But I met him at a convention focused around the people that love this game, and they were playing the game like live as a telethon and having this music. I mean, like a whole game show thing going on while somebody's playing the game, and then there was a huge like music concert, and they like some kids built like the way that you would see a Chinese dragon. They built like the Kraken from the game. And,
cool! That's
and
cool.
In your swag bag, they had flip-flops. And so you could take your flip-flops and throw them at the Kraken, which is what you're supposed to do in the game.
Oh,
and it's just like
so
the level. I mean, I just don't see that kind of stuff in such detail and the love for it. I've just always been impressed by the Earthbound kids. And another thing is that it's always been really nice. Maybe a little awkward, but like no one's ever been like mean. Whereas in some other places there can be some gatekeeping or just some, just mean, shrewd people. But yeah, so I definitely big ups to the Earthbound hardcore community, because they've been cool.
It's cool. I don't know anyone personally from that. And as I'm going through these interviews, the one thing that I do keep coming back to is that community, because it's very pure.
Mm-hmm.
There's a purity to it. There's I'll say not innocence, but maybe innocence. There's just a love. There's, like you said, there's no, Final Fantasy fans can be, pretty crappy sometimes, and Legend of Zelda fans can be very divisive, and every fandom has an element that detracts from the overall fandom. And I actually love fandoms. I think fandom is a good thing. I think finding community around a particular work or piece or art, I think that's really good. Unfortunately, fandoms can get toxic, and the bad actors can overrule the balance of the people who are just there to enjoy and experience the game in community with people. But Earthbound, as I've been looking through it, it's intense and it just seems cool. It doesn't seem like there's anybody, and I guess that's a testament to the type of game we're talking about, that has an innocence to it, that has the deep themes, and that I think people really intensely connected with throughout the generations. Yeah. So it's a pretty special thing. There's likely, as I'm going through these interviews, I'm already building out my second set of interviews about Earthbound, because there's just too much stuff. And the second set's probably about the community, just because it's so interesting what grew from this, like you said, a game that wasn't successful here, that all of a sudden became more than a cult classic. It became an important, beloved part of Super Nintendo, and I'd almost say RPG history. So
yeah, I mean, I could tell you the people to talk to for sure, because there's it's a good big community out there.
Community. I had a funny feeling going in that the Earthbound community was a rich one. I had no idea it was intense. It was passionate, and it bridged the gap. It bridged age. It bridged experience from 50-year-old guys who played this when they were 5 to young people who are not even old enough to drink, coming together to enjoy this game as a group of people is extraordinary. It's welcoming, and it's frankly rather wonderful. But I still wasn't going to do this show. I was like, this can't be 5 weeks, can it? Can we do 5 weeks on Earthbound? Until finally, Kat Blackard, a month later, said the following.
Yeah, and sharing it with other people has been kind of the hallmark of, like, there's something really special about Earthbound. There's the forthcoming documentary Earthbound USA from Fangamer, and that's about the fan community that has popped up around Earthbound, and the Starman.net fan community, which in large part was people who, like, as singular kids, loved Earthbound but didn't know anybody else who'd played it. And I was in a unique situation of I had 2 other friends who were also really into it. And there's something about this game that really does attempt to build community, because, like, when I was in 8th grade, I attempted a, like, overnight sleepover thing where we were going to just all play Earthbound together, which no one was really interested in, like, because I was trying to introduce it to new people because I wanted to share it with more people. Yeah. And, come to find out, that's one of, like, that was like that was the thing that other people who also loved Earthbound did. What is it about this game that promotes this? I don't know, but that's, like, it's a pattern.
Yeah, Kat, I want to know too. On this episode of A Gamer Looks at 40, we complete our cycle of Earthbound with a conversation about the community that surrounds it, the heart and soul of this game that takes it from a cult classic to legendary status. Join me as I share 3 conversations with 3 very interesting people about this fantastic game and the community of fans it inspired to bring together as we dive into episode 88, Earthbound Part 5-ish, The Curator, the Creator, and the Couple. Now, every community needs a center, a town square where people can get together, share ideas, and just get to know each other around a topic or a game or a system or really pretty much anything. Whatever you're into, there's likely a group of people who are also into it that are ready and willing to just accept you into the fold. And that's what I love about fandoms. I say this in a number of times, I think, in these interviews, but I love fandoms. Fans can get crazy. Fans can get toxic, but the core of fandom is, I think, very pure and very good and unique to art in general. Now, in the early days of Earthbound, starmen.net was the epicenter. That was the place where everyone went to commune and get ideas and just talk about this game in a passionate way. But over the last 10 or so years, starmen.net is taking a bit of a backseat as a legacy site in favor of a new place for people to have that experience, motherforever.net. The main curator of the site is Kody Nokolo, a passionate Mother fan who not only loves the game, but loves collecting all of the bits and pieces and content that the entire community has generated over the last probably 30 years. Mother Forever is a wonderful place not only to get to know people, but to experience that wide variety of Earthbound content that this game has inspired over the generations. From Earthbound-like games to artwork to a yearly direct where they announce and talk about all sorts of different Earthbound-related projects, Kody has created a wonderful place for people to share their ideas, get their work seen, and meet like-minded friends. In the first part of this episode, I chat with Kody for about 25 minutes about his initial beginnings with Earthbound, the stresses and joys of creating an online community, and what we can expect going forward.
I'm Kody Nokolo, and I helped start the fan website Mother Forever, which documents and archives all of the new Mother news, what little there is at this point, but all of the history of the series. So we've kind of taken up that mantle from starmen.net, who used to do that regularly back in the day, about 10 years ago at this point now, and we've continued to keep all that information fresh and accessible for anybody that wants to find it. So yeah, I run that website, and I also make a Mother fan celebration called the Mother Direct, which is a part of that celebrates mother-like indie games also, and nice. Mother fan projects. So that's all the Mother Forever stuff. And I got into the Mother series and Earthbound way long time ago when, well, I guess not that long for a lot of people who first started playing Earthbound. I'm actually on the younger side, so I got into it when I played Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and that was when I was in elementary school. I didn't have a chance to play Earthbound when I was growing up because I was born and my childhood happened during the 2000s, so there wasn't really a chance.
Wow, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. I always wonder how many people got turned on to Earthbound through Smash Bros. Because Ness was that a character you used, or was that one of your mains?
Well, actually, completely. Well, all right. At the beginning, in Smash Bros. Melee, I was interested in Ness, and I was interested in Onett in general because it was very wasn't normal looking, but it was more like a down-to-earth kind of character and a down-to-earth looking stage in that game compared to the really fantastical things like, Dreamland or Princess Peach's castle, like things like that. I saw those and I'm like, oh wow, that's so out there. And then there's just Onett, like a normal-ish looking city, and I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting to me. And the music was what really made me interested in it too, because I would always have that theme song for Onett stuck in my head. I really like to play as Kirby though, so I didn't really play as Ness very much, but Ness was kind of my second go-to. And then when Brawl came out, I got a lot more interested because of the Subspace Emissary. It kind of gave Lucas and Ness a story together, and I actually was a lot more interested in Lucas than Ness. and
Interesting.
finding out more about where Lucas came from. So eventually, one of my friends from elementary school and we went on this mad hunt, like looking for all this Earthbound stuff, and eventually we got on starman.net really young and found out how to use an emulator. And I couldn't figure out the Super Nintendo emulator, but I figured out the Game Boy Advance one. So instead of playing Earthbound first, I ended up playing Mother 3 as my first game, the fan translation.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, the fan translation also got me interested in learning Japanese and doing translations too. So it affected a lot of things in my life in the end.
That's really cool. So when you played, so that's very interesting. You went from Melee to over to the game itself, Mother 3.
Right.
What connected you to Mother 3 when you played it? And then obviously you probably went to Earthbound next in the first one. How did you get into the whole series? Yeah.
So when I first played Mother 3, what really stuck out to me was definitely that setting and the characters. And the writing was also super important to me too. So I played through it and was expecting something along the lines of Pokemon. I'd played Pokemon a lot before I played Mother, and I was expecting it fully to be an RPG in that style. And when I played that game, I realized it was something that was more like a personal journey than like a journey for any kind of, like Pokemon is more about like accomplishment and like getting to the end, becoming the champion in that game. But Mother was more about overcoming a lot of societal issues that happened all throughout the game, and eventually mixed in some fantastical elements too, and that really appealed to me. And yeah, so when I played Mother 3, I think the writing also stuck out to me too as being very playful and engaging, even for the most off the beaten path characters and situations. Each thing always had something fun to just read and be like, oh wow, that was fun to just experience. It wasn't just getting an item that was a fun part of the game or fighting an enemy. It was also just reading the situations that happened in the game sometimes. And that continued on into Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings too. So I felt that same kind of thing in both of those games when I went on to play them.
That's very interesting. Now, when you played Earthbound, did you play that after Mother 3, or did you kind of start at the beginning? Okay, so you did. What about, of the three, what would you say was the most impactful for you?
Well, it definitely had to be Mother 3.
Sure.
And it was because, it's also because of that fan translation that I was talking about too, because it made me realize how much of an effort fans can put into making something for a project and for the series, even though this series wasn't getting anything at the time. I mean, when I was growing up, there were no Earthbound games released in North America at all, so I had nothing really except the fans to look to for any of this stuff, and that continued on all the way until the Wii U got anything. So it was a really that really impacted me a lot, the fan translation, and it also impacted what I ended up doing for Mother Forever too, because on Mother Forever, I've tried to find a lot of different articles and lost information that was only accessible in Japanese. And the only way I could do that was by learning Japanese. Wow. Mother 3 really made me interested in learning more about the language and trying to provide translations for the community, because Clyde Mandel and Tomato, who made that fan translation, really made me realize that there weren't that many people that were doing this for the community yet. It was really him and just a few other people that were able to provide these things for people, and I wanted to do the same thing eventually, and that's what I ended up doing.
That's awesome. And I love how that grew from an idea to a fandom into what really turned into a labor of love, because it's very clear when you go through Mother Forever, it's a love letter. Like and you create like this compendium, of information. And I think it's really fantastic that people like you have kept this going and have built these communities around this impactful game. And the fact that Earthbound continues to resonate really speaks a lot to it. And I love the fact that you actually went forward and learned Japanese just so you can further contribute to the project. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, when I was learning the language, when I first played through the fan translation, that was the first thing I was thinking was I want to learn the language for this game. But then eventually it grew into learning the language to provide for a bunch of other things, and for myself too, just to learn it so I could learn more about a new culture too. And that really helped understand a lot of things about the games. And Shigesato Itoi himself, after learning that, I was able to read a lot of his other writing, which is just as fun as the Mother games are.
That's cool. I didn't realize he did other writing. It makes sense, but I didn't realize.
Oh yeah, he wrote so many different things, and he still does he has his own website that he does it on too.
Have you ever had a chance to talk to him or even meet him?
Not yet. No.
Okay. That would be would that be like a dream situation to get to sit down? Here's the question. Here's potentially a silly question. If you could sit across the desk from him and ask him one question, what would that question be?
You know, it's funny. Somebody else asked me that same question. What would I ask him not that long ago? And I was like, I don't know what I would ask him. I'm not sure. But I know it definitely would be something related to the fans. And I think it would probably have to be something along the lines of, did you ever foresee like the fan impact of this, or have you engaged a lot with the fans to see how far this has like progressed to this point? Because now there are so many different fan projects, like fan remakes of the older games and fan videos dissecting themes in the games themselves. And it's gone so far out of what I think he probably expected from these games.
I can't imagine, because I'm sure he's aware, but that's kind of why when I first started this series for Earthbound for my show, at first it was going to be one episode. It's like one episode, do a quick one on Earthbound. I put out the casting call, like, hey, who wants to talk about Earthbound? I got so many responses. I started, this is going to be a 2 episode. This is going to be a 3. No, this is going to be a 4, maybe 5. And I was blown away by the community response and the length and breadth of experiences. And I'm a big fan of fandoms. Fans can be brutal, and sometimes fandoms get poisoned, but I love fandoms. I love when people get together around a work or an art, or I love it. I think it's a beautiful thing about art, and I love that games can do the exact same thing. Now, were you part of Starman.net before, or Starmen.net before you went to the Mother Forever project, or?
So I was kind of basically a lurker on Starmen.net's forums. I wasn't officially working on anything with them or anything like that. I just kind of lurked in the background and watched a lot of this stuff unfold. And I knew a lot of people in the community, but I never actually reached out to them. The only experience I directly had on Starmen.net until creating Mother Forever was going to this convention they sort of held called Camp Fangamer.
Cool. And that was that an Earthbound centric, or was that a wider net, that convention?
Yeah, so Camp Fangamer, for anybody that doesn't know, that was in 2015, 2016, and 2018. There were 3 of them. They were all centered, more or less. The first one was really centered on it, but mostly centered on the Mother games. And they were super themed. Every room was themed around something from Earthbound, and there was a whole playthrough of the game where there were parts of it acted out on the stage. There was a do you know Berglund Park from Tucson in Earthbound?
Yeah, for sure.
There was a setup there in the middle of the convention area that was a quote unquote Berglund Park, and it was a mat that had miscellaneous things you could trade for.
Oh my gosh,
you could trade your junk for other junk. It was really funny. It was a blast.
I need to look up if shots of this or videos of this. This sounds amazing.
Oh, it's out there. Definitely look for it. It's awesome.
That sounds wild. That sounds so fun and good. I can picture it. And just the way Earthbound, and again, and the other games too, visually, how appealing that would be. That must have been just wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd love to hear some stories from you about not only the joys of creating a community, because Mother Forever is also a community, and Earthbound, of course, has had a large community from not the very beginning, but it's slowly grown over the years, and Mother Forever is a part of that community and an important part of it now. Can you share some of those joys and successes of helping curate that community, and also some of the challenges that you've kind of encountered along the way of the process? Yeah.
So, some of the joys of that, especially creating the Mother Direct parts of Mother Forever, all those different fan celebrations. I think the best part is just seeing what kinds of things people make to celebrate these games and to really carry the spirit of the series forward, because a lot of people are hopeful about getting another game, but Shigesato Itoi has said it's probably not going to happen, and I don't know if it really can happen without him. So it's really cool to see all these people celebrate the series in their own ways and carry that spirit forward. Even if it's not Mother, they carry it forward into things they make, even if they're directly related to Mother, if they're just Mother-like indie games that celebrate the series that way. It's incredible what people make to celebrate the games. And part of what I do on the website for archiving all the information and all of that stuff is just one part of that. I think the most fun part of working on all of this stuff is definitely making that celebration of all those fan projects once in a while, to really show people what the Mother community is doing, and to show how deep this passion really runs, especially when there are full indie games and fan games being made for the series to continue that spirit where it leaves off.
I love that. I think that's great. And again, creating this centralized location where people can find these things, just growing that community and growing that awareness, I think is very, very cool as well. Were there any challenges along the way where, again, as I said before, fandoms are awesome, but sometimes fans cannot be. Has there, without putting anybody on blast or anything, we can keep it civil. What are some of the challenges in kind of doing this curation process?
So, the challenging parts of all this is definitely a lot of people are really passionate about the games, and a lot of people are really set on them being represented in the ways that they originally were represented, and not continuing. They don't imagine that the spirit can really continue past the games, I guess, is what I've noticed for some people.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, what I was saying before is that I definitely believe that, and I think it's healthy to believe that for a lot of things. Otherwise, you can't really. I don't know how art would contribute to each other if that spirit didn't continue on. I think it's a healthy thing to think.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But
for sure,
some people will only think of the games as being represented in that way, and they don't think the spirit can continue outside of that, and are very adamant about it staying only in those games and not connecting to anything else. So, I mean, that's an opinion you can have. There's nothing against that, but some people have gone farther with it than others, and sometimes it's challenging when people will go out of their way to be like, this game isn't really Mother, or this project isn't. What about this project is Mother to me? And a lot of people can be a little harsh in that way. But aside from that, it really has been a pretty smooth sailing. There haven't really been that many challenges that were super tough. It's just that kind of stigma around what some people think about art in general.
And I think that brings up a really interesting point, and that's a topic we could go down this crazy rabbit hole on if you really wanted to. But I do think that's rather interesting because you're right. Earthbound is the sort of art that people connect to so deeply. They're going to have their own opinions and thoughts on what counts as a fan project, what isn't a mother like, right? And I think that's got a lot of, I could see how balancing those out and putting those, not guide rails, but, or making it as open as possible, right? Making it so, hey, I guess kind of what is the spirit of Earthbound? And that's a hard thing to pin down because of the game, again, that connects with people so closely. Yeah. It's hard to do. So I can totally see that being a challenge.
And it's definitely difficult because I think a lot of people who play the games find different things about them appealing. Also, some people really enjoy the gameplay. Some people enjoy the writing or the art style. There's so many different things that people enjoy about each part of the games, and when they go on to create their own fan project, or if they make an indie game that's inspired by it, they take different things away from that experience.
And also a big part of it too is when you experienced it as well. A big part of the work and the interviews I've collected so far for the series is how does this hit you differently as a kid as it does as an adult? And so I can see somebody who's very nostalgic for it, who I played this when I was 10 and I loved the group of kids as characters and I identified with them going on this adventure. And then fast forward 20 years and it's like, this is all happening in real life. I'm struggling with demons and you know, all those deeper, more adult themes in that journey. So it's a wide net, this cast. And that's why I think Earthbound's so successful personally. I only played it for the first time a few years ago. Like first time because I didn't have it as a kid and I wasn't too big into the emulation world and the marketing didn't appeal to me. Right. So I play as an adult and I'm like, wow, I can totally see this journey. This is really cool in a number of different levels.
Yeah. When you play it young, as a kid or when you're younger, you really see a lot of the stuff on the surface level, but as you get older, you see the depth.
Absolutely. 100% correct. Also, obviously, through the process of Mother Forever and all the connections you've made, I'd love to hear some personal stories of people you've met or connections you've made through the game and through the fandom, if you have any of those.
So I've connected with a lot of people, especially through the Mother Direct presentation, since I've worked with so many different indie games to showcase their projects. And if I had to talk about a couple specific ones, I'd say one that, a few that I didn't expect to really connect with is I wasn't sure if I'd ever connect with one developer. There was the Y2K developers. I don't know if you've ever played or heard of Y2K, a postmodern RPG. It's an indie game that's inspired by Earthbound, but I knew about it for so long, and I connected with them, and I was like, wow, they're super cool to talk to, and they were really nice to meet. And I've also I met a few other people too. Like there's a new documentary coming out called Earthbound USA, and that's made by Fangamer, who used to run starmen.net. That documentary has been in development for so long. It was actually part of a Kickstarter a really long time ago that I had backed as a teenager. I really didn't expect that eventually I would be able to communicate with them, and I was able to help them with some information on the project too, eventually, just out of a chance of starting this website and eventually getting to the point where it was such a good resource for people to use that they reached out. So that was great too. That's fantastic. Another developer who really inspired me as a child too. The developer of Undertale and Deltarune, Toby Fox, was able to talk with him too, and that was really, really fun. And yeah, there's so many other people, so many people that I've met through this project, especially showcasing the inspired stuff that really it was really fun to meet so many different people that way.
That's really cool. And it sounds like it's been a very enriching experience for you. It really does. So when I hear you talking about it, I almost feel like you have a smile on your face the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's really, really, really great that this community has been so enriching for you.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and as I'm also a developer who's making my own indie game, so it's really
cool.
really fascinating to hear a lot of those stories of inspiration and to talk to a lot of other developers and get their insight while I'm making my own thing too, and that's really fun and interesting to learn about.
Can you tell me a bit about that game you're working on?
Yeah, so it's a game called Mnemonic, and that's spelled GNO, and then the rest. It's weird.
Okay,
yeah,
like garden
gnome,
mnemonic.
yeah, but it's a gnomon
Yeah.
is something different. It's a pretty weird title for a pretty weird game. It's a game that's inspired by Earthbound. Gameplay wise, it's pretty much its own thing, but a lot of the feelings and the way you progress through the game, especially if you're a Mother fan and you play this game, you'll probably be like, oh, somebody who likes Mother probably made this game. It's an RPG also, and also will involve a younger kid, and also involves dream worlds, kind of like Magicant too. So if you enjoy any of that stuff, you might enjoy that.
Fantastic. That sounds really fun. Do you have I know on these indie projects, there's really no timelines. Like that's an evil thing to say, I know, but kind of how long have you been working on it? And loose timelines.
Sure.
When can we expect it, or hope to expect it? I don't want.
No, it's okay.
Pressure.
Actually, we have our demo, which is a pretty good way to see if you'll like the game or not, is coming out at the end of this year. So that's coming soon.
Oh, fantastic!
The full game, I'm not too sure yet, but we'll see. Yeah, so the demo's coming out at the end of the year, and maybe the rest of the game will be ready in the next couple years. I think at the rate we're going, we've been working on it for. The game actually is part of the reason Mother Forever started, weirdly enough.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it started as a part of a college research project, actually, the game. And as a part of that research project, I started investigating things about Mother. And then eventually those things about Mother led me down a pipeline of things that people had never found about Mother, and eventually that ended up going on Mother Forever. That became the website. So the game kind of indirectly also brought Mother Forever into existence. I've been working on it for probably about 3 years at this point, but really the full version of the game, the one that is existent now, really started development at the beginning of this year. It's changed its form so many times, as indie games do.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the energy and the spirit of it. That's always a really fun thing for me. So yeah, please let me know when that comes out. I'd love to give you a little promotion and push for it, because it sounds really fascinating. Sure. Absolutely, especially when the demo comes out. Any final thoughts on Earthbound? Again, thank you so much for the time. And again, I really want to focus on the community aspect of it, right? But any other final thoughts? And here's one question. I've been asking this question to other people, so I'll kind of close with this. Let's say you meet somebody, in the real world out there in life, and they've never played Earthbound, and they start talking to you about the Mother series. What would be your elevator pitch for somebody who's never played it, plays games, has played some RPGs, but again, like me, I never played it as a kid because the marketing didn't appeal to me. I was a Final Fantasy guy, and it just never, you only get one game a year. What would be your elevator pitch for someone to try it now?
That's a good question. I think I would probably say, if you really want a fun game that's really wears its heart on its sleeve, and that doesn't focus so much on the mechanics as much as it does the characters being fun to experience, I think this is the game for you. I think this game can really reveal a lot more about writing and characters in games than a lot of other games have, for me at least.
Just wanted to take a moment to thank my amazing patrons. Talk about a supportive community. My patrons have been amazing over the last couple of years, supporting the show financially and just being a sounding board and for being all around amazing people. I'd like to thank the following fantastic folks, starting with Terry Kinnair, Greg Seward of the Player One podcast and Generation 16 series of videos, Games with Coffee, The Let's Play Princess, Theodore LaBarbara, P.T. Goebbels, Tim Knowles of The Elitist, Julian of Nerds Without Pants, Seth Sergil of the All In podcast, and the new daddy himself, the one and only Pete Harney. If you would like to join these wonderful people in supporting the show, please go to patreon.com/agamerlooksat40. Check out the tiers, and if anything strikes your fancy, please sign up today. And if not, no worries. Just tell a friend about the show. That is the best way to get people listening and spreading the signal of what I'm trying to do here on A Gamer Looks at 40. Thanks for listening, and let's keep going with the episode. Next up on the episode is artist, level designer, animator, Retro64. You can find him on Twitter at Retro64 with 2 underscores. And Retro is an incredible, wonderful, passionate fan of Earthbound. Responsible for a number of amazing projects, including the Smash Remix, Mother Encore, Mother Squared, and serves as a staff member at Mother Forever. Let's join the conversation as Retro64 discusses Earthbound's many influences and the amazing friends made along the way. Well, Ryan, thank you again so much for taking some time today to chat a bit about your connection with Earthbound, some of the work you've been doing, and definitely the community surrounding the game. There's 4 episodes out there now about the game itself, and a lot of people telling stories on how it's impacted their lives and the different pieces, and we're just really getting into a lot of the nitty-gritty of the game. And this episode is going to be about community, because as I've gone through these interviews, I've realized that the Earthbound community is crazy. It's in a good way. It's awesome. Just I love fandoms. I know fans can get crazy and awful and toxic, but fandoms I think are a universal good, and it's just people sometimes are in them. But I just love the people in this fandom. So thank you for taking that time to chat with me about your experiences.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Cool. So first things first, I'd love to hear a bit about your first touch base with Earthbound. How did you first get involved with the game? And then maybe how you kind of got plugged into the community itself.
I'm not sure if I could say it's a like other people or a not like other people, because I feel like most people usually say, oh, I learned about it from Smash Bros. But yeah. I didn't. But I also learned from the second most likely place, which is I learned from watching Chugga Conroy's Let's Plays on YouTube back in the early 2010s.
Okay.
It was his. Let me look it up actually, because he. I'm assuming you've probably heard of him.
I have, yes.
Yeah, because Earthbound was his first Let's Play he did in, I believe, 2008. And okay. I'm a bit of a youngin', and I watched his content when I was in elementary school.
Cool, okay.
Yeah, so as a kid, I loved Pikmin a lot. Still do. Pikmin, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong Country, old 90s and early 2000s stuff. And I got into him and the Let's Play channel collab he did with a few other people, the Runaway Guys, where I forget if I watched Chugga Conroy first, which got to them, or if I watched Nintendo Capri Sun's Banjo Let's Play, which then made me watch Runaway Guys, which then made me watch Chugga Conroy. I don't know which one it was. But
don't you love how that happens too? Don't you love that rabbit hole, even as a kid, right?
Yeah, I don't know which one it was, but at some point I started watching Let's Plays, and I'm like, what's this Earthbound? What's this Mother 3? Let's Play number 5, Mother 3, Let's Play number 1, Earthbound, Mother 2, Let's Play 2, Mother. And I checked them out, and I'm like, these are pretty cool. I never really see, like, I know this is what everyone says, but not many games out there that just even, like, look like them. They're, like, you know, they're in the modern age, but they're, like, also, like, super weird. Because most games that have a more grounded setting are always, like, you know, like the hyper-realistic kind, you know? And then, obviously, afterwards, I started playing Smash Bros. And I'm like, it's that kid. It's that kid from that thing that I watched a few times. I never actually... So I was always aware of it. And I knew it existed. I watched some of his Let's Play of it. But I never actually, like, super started getting into the franchise, like, more. It's gonna sound like the most cringy thing ever, but once Undertale came out,
Yeah.
and I'm like, dang, this is a good game. And then everyone knew that Undertale was inspired a lot by Earthbound.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I finally decided to get the game for myself on... I forget where I have many copies of it because I... a weenie, like buying too many versions of games that I like. And I think I got it on the Wii U Virtual Console first.
Okay.
And then I ended up playing it mostly on my 3DS. Or did I get the... See, this is the thing. I'm terrible at remembering, for some reason, my origins. I played most of it on 3DS, so I'm going to say played it on 3DS.
That works perfect. That sounds perfect. Cool. So you played it on 3DS. And what I love about this story so far is you were introduced to it via YouTube, via a Let's Play, pretty early on in the Let's Play world, like 2008, 2010. Those were just starting to become like a genuine thing. They were kind of still early in that world. So you got attracted to it through just watching it, not really playing it, just experiencing it as a kid. And
Yes.
one thing I've said a lot on this show with other people is I always wonder how this game would have hit for a kid, because I played it for the first time like 3 years ago. I'm 42. I'm old.
Oh.
Because I had a Super Nintendo, but I only got one game a year as a kid. And then by the time I was able to probably buy it myself, I was an edgy, teenager, and kiddie game wasn't going to be fun for me. So I am super late to the game. So for me, I play it as an adult and it has a different hit for me. But for you, you saw as a kid and it sounded like it connected with you.
It did, and we'll go more into this later, but I think the thing that probably most made it stick out in my mind was not specifically just Mother 3 and how that game has such a... Like, that's probably the first time I encountered a game with a deep story, and that stuck with me so hard, even as a little kid. But specifically, the mystery surrounding Earthbound 64. Because I said from, like, my love of like, rare things, I love the SNES, late SNES to N64 era, like, the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing that there was this canceled, elusive N64 game that, at the time, all there was that Space World trailer. And that trailer is, like, one of the most... Like, it is the most engrossing, like, captivating trailer out of anything I've probably ever seen for any video game.
It sounds like you really got a lot of exposure to it before even getting your hands on it. How did you first get involved with the community of Earthbound, and where did you find yourself there?
I first got myself involved in the community by the strangest way possible, by not purposefully interacting with the community. The community found me.
Okay, cool.
I work on a project called Smash Remix, right? It is a mod that for Smash 64 that adds characters and stages, game modes, and gameplay option modifiers. Like if you want to add tripping for Brawl and weird other funny like random things, you do that. And one of the first things that I did in the project when I first joined was I was brought on specifically because I posted a model that am not proud of anymore. It's like the first 3D model I ever made of its N64 styled like Lucas model. And I was invited on the team to use that model to add as Lucas in Smash 64. And eventually the model got cleaned up by me and the lead artist because it was ugly. And we released the trailer for Lucas in Smash Remix. And then I was contacted by Mother Forever. If we wanted to have, I was specifically pointed to me since I was the person that did a lot of the work for Lucas for related stuff, since I was the huge Mother fan. I did the Newport City stage that was added with him too. I worked on the trailer for him. And they said, do you want this to be in the Mother Direct? And I believe that was the first Mother Direct.
Oh, cool.
And I said, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to get the word out to more people. Because at the time, this was like Remix's, like, I want to say third update. And it was still pretty small at the time. And it was great to get the word out in any way. And I was like, well, getting it out to more Mother fans would be like the perfect thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was brought onto the Mother Direct server. And then I joined the Mother Forever like main public server.
Right.
And that is basically in that Mother Forever public server, as well as well, yeah, because of the public server, because all of the people in the like the people working on the project thing were in the public server too.
Right.
Is basically where I met everyone. And there is people that I met there, like how many years ago was that? Because the first Mother Direct was like almost, it has been over 4 years.
Wow.
And I would say that some of the people I met there are probably the closest of friends that I've ever had in my whole life.
Oh, that's so cool.
I still talk to them basically every single day. And a lot of those people are the same people that I work on in the Mother-related projects.
So that's really cool that your love of the game and the series naturally drew people to you because of your talent, right? And because of the things you're doing at Smash, and I love how that happens. It seems like it's just, again, bringing people together. I'd love to hear some stories of, again, the specific people you've met, maybe some real great friendships, or, you know, that have kind of grown from being a part of the community.
First person I would like, I guess I'd like to shout out is my friend Ash. They go by Snowwood on Twitter. They are probably, I'd say, definitely my best friend. We talk basically almost every day.
So cool.
We've had multiple times where we just sit in a VC on Discord I think we had like a 9-hour VC just talking about like a single game. And we're like, because we're both like early Sonic fans. Like we love like the early '90s Sonic games. We had like an 8-9 hour VC just talking about the canceled Sonic Extreme.
That's awesome. That conversation is probably longer than the game itself would have been.
Yeah. And the conclusion we came to is that it is a video game. And we like wrote out a document of like the time release and like the development time period of what we know about Sonic Extreme and when the builds were done and when the things were done and when they switched to different things, and it's like an 8-page long document. We're too nuts in a walnut. I don't know what to say.
That's perfectly good. I love that. That's a sign of good friendship too, where you can just connect over just random stuff. My brother and I are very similar in that he's the only person other than maybe one other person that I could just talk to for hours about nothing and end up dying laughing at some point and just making each other laugh. It's very cool when you have that kind of connection. And again, I love the game brought that together. Who else would you say were, very important relationships to you thanks to Earthbound?
I would say my friend Sam goes by Sam the Salmon. I met him on the also on that Mother Forever Discord. And he is the leader and one of the co-creators of Mother Encore. And that is how I met him. And we basically there was just kind of, there was a few, what happened is there was a few people, because I'm going to say, it's going to just all be the same thing. I'm going to basically have the same story 5 times.
That's fine.
People in the Mother Forever Discord, who all went into VC to talk about Earthbound 64. That's basically all it was. We were all brought together by our love for a game none of us have ever played.
So good.
We would go on multiple hour-long discussions talking about this game that we've never played and talking about, in trying to like hyper-analyze screenshots. And because he's obviously an artist, one of the people that I also would try to recreate like the game's assets and try and create video demos of what the game could have looked like. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. That's how I met them. We met them over basically talking about Earthbound 64 specifically, and now we're just all great friends. Talk about anything. Yeah. And have the dumbest inside jokes known to man.
What friendship is complete without dumb inside jokes? I'm just gonna because I can guarantee that some of them are gonna watch this. I'm just gonna say the word Bob, and they're just gonna lose it. That's great, Bob. All right, listen. If hopefully people in this community check this out, and I really do hope a lot of people are just chuckling and just having a blast at that. That's pretty fun. I love that. I love the concept of people coming together thanks to any art form, and I love that games can do that, and especially a game like Earthbound, which I think lends itself to that sort of openness and freedom of expression and inclusiveness. It just seems like it's ripe for that, and that's really cool that you've made those connections. That's really neat. any final thoughts on Earthbound? Again, a focus on the community, what the game means to you personally. If that sounds too corny, I apologize, but the way I like to say it, I'm a 40-year-old dad. I am allowed to be corny now. I have earned the right by that. So yeah, any final thoughts about Earthbound, the community, and just kind of what the whole ecosystem means to you?
That's a tricky question.
It's a loaded one, right? It's a big.
That's a tricky question because I have been in the I like it sounds weird to say, but I've been in the community for so long in the ranking. Not like it sounds dumb, but but like, you know, people always say like, oh, I want to be like, not that I'd say I'm popular, because that's like I'm like, but I'm like, people are like, oh, I'd love to be the cool person that does this and this, and it's like, it's just like this sense of normalcy that it's just like, this is just, I don't even think of it as, ooh, this cool thing in the mother community. It's just this cool thing with my friends, that I just do and spend time with. And it is just the passion that I have that I'm going to end up doing for my career. It has its ups, it has its downs, but I can say that I guess what Earthbound means to me is say I'm only 19, but I can be corny too. It brought together all of my greatest friends, basically. So that's what it means to me.
And rounding out our 3-part episode is the couple. Please meet Jonathan and Kody. Jonathan is a YouTube creator who specializes in mother-based content, including a focus on Earthbound 64, and Kody is his partner, a wonderful artist in her own right. Now, when I heard about Jonathan, I reached out to him directly and mentioned him being on the show, and he was very enthusiastic. But then after going through his videos, I noticed that his partner, Kody, was a part of it too. And they're both huge Earthbound fans. And since I'm a corny 40-year-old dad, I like people when they get together. I like couples. I get all mushy-gushy about it. And I decided to bring them on the show together to not only share their initial impressions of Earthbound and how it's affected them personally, but how this game and this community united them as a couple. So, Jonathan, Kody, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today about y'all. I'm from Texas, so I say y'all, and your connection to Earthbound. But first, I'd love to get a little bit of background from both of you. What was your first touch points with Earthbound? And Jonathan, we'll start with you.
For me, it was 2018, and that might make some of you sound kind of old, considering I know a lot of people played Earthbound back a long, long time ago, but played it on my new 3DS on via the eShop one day, and really it just clicked with me. That was just everything that I enjoyed about like RPGs, which I never really played that many RPGs. I was more like of a kid that was like, oh, I like Paper Mario, but I'd never really connected with that many other RPGs. But Earthbound really, really spoke to me, you could say.
Cool. So you played on a new 3DS. Again, yes, that ages me. But that's all good. I love it. And that's what I love about this too. I'm going to explore it a bit, is that how this game continues to have that ripple effect, like all the way down the line. That's what I find so fascinating about this community. It's so varied.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Absolutely.
It feels like more than a retro game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then, Kody, what about you? What was your first experience with it?
So I first played Earthbound in 2015 when I first got my Wii U. It was kind of a series I was always wanted to check out. I was like 14 at the time, and I had seen a lot of my friends talking about it recently, so I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. And I just remember, kind of similar to how Jonathan described it, I just like immediately connected with it. I remember specifically, like, when I was battling, like, the police force in ONET, I was like, oh, I love this game, this is great. I just, like, really connected right away, and I was immediately hooked on it. And I didn't end up playing the other two until, well, I played part of Earthbound Beginnings and part of Mother 3, and I actually didn't really like Mother 3 when I first played it. I think because I was like 14 and it just didn't resonate with me that much. But I ended up picking it up again when I was in high school. I was around 17. So I played Mother 3 again, and I played it all the way through that time. And it just like really struck a chord with me. Even honestly, I was even more hooked on it than I was with Earthbound. It just really strongly resonated with me and came to me at a really good point in my life.
Yeah.
I kind of had, like, for me, I had sort of like a resurgence where I got back into this series a couple years after I first started it out, and ever since then it's been like a really big part of my life.
Yeah, and that's funny because, like, it didn't take me very long to play Earthbound Beginnings and Mother 3 after I played Earthbound. And that is partially because I was entering the fandom and I was like, oh, I don't want to be spoiled on these games from all, like, the memes and people posting about them.
Yeah.
And since I'd only played Earthbound, I was like, I better get well versed in the other two games.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense, right? If you get involved with a rabid fan base, you really probably need to be well versed on the whole series. That makes total sense. I'd love to talk a bit about the fandom. So when did y'all get involved in the community? And then I'd love to hear how that kind of intersected with you guys getting together. So yeah, Jonathan, we'll start with you as well. How did you first get involved with that Earthbound community?
Well, if I recall, it was probably around early 2019, and I can say this was definitely the rise in people making, like, Discord servers and stuff for, like, specific niches. And I just happened to join, like, a Mother server one day, and that's where I first started actually speaking to people who are other Mother fans. Because before then, I would just occasionally tweet about Earthbound before I'd really found any friends and whatnot that were interested in it. And, you know, it was nice seeing people who were also interested in the game. And particularly, I can say specifically that regarding Mother 3, I was finding people who were likewise interested in the unreleased N64 version of Mother 3. And that's a whole other thing that I might get into soon, but regarding that, I was finding people who not only were into Earthbound, but into such a specific subgenre of the series, you could say. And that was fun.
Nice. And it just kind of happened naturally through your interactions on Twitter and posting, and kind of is that kind of gravitation almost. What about you, Kody?
So I was kind of interested in the fandom, like, as soon as I started playing Earthbound. I wasn't, like, an active part in it, though, necessarily at first. Like, I really enjoyed kind of lurking and looking at old threads on starman.net and looking at fan art and stuff. I really like doing stuff like that. And back then I drew some of my own fan art, but I was like 14. I didn't have a big online presence, but I really became more invested in the fandom around 2018, when I started using Twitter, and I was posting a lot of my fan art and stuff on there, and I made some connections through that, but then eventually I joined a Discord server for Earthbound 64, and I was learning a lot about it through there. I hadn't really known much about it before I joined, but I was always interested in it, so I got to learn a lot about it through there, and I made a lot of friends through there, including, that was when I first started really talking to Jonathan.
Interesting. So you guys, now, was the Earthbound 64 Discord server yours, Jonathan, or were you just a member?
Back then, it was someone else ran that, and I was just a member. But funnily enough, me and Kody knew each other before that, because some months prior to Kody joining, I had begun speaking to her on Twitter because I was interested in their Mother series collection. Because one thing I wasn't finding in the fandom really were other people who were interested in collecting the merchandise, at least other English speakers. I saw some Japanese users who would collect stuff, which was cool, but I saw Kody stuff and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And that's where we first started talking. And not to get ahead of myself, but I suppose everything's gone full circle considering we made that video of looking at Kody's collection.
That was the video I saw, and I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. I love when people get together thanks to fandoms. I think I probably mentioned this in the email, maybe not, but I love when games can bring people together, because a lot of people talk about other art forms, music and movies and books, people connecting over that, but games don't ever get talked about too much. And I think like any other art form, games can do that. And it's so cool that it did that for y'all. So let's just kind of get into how you guys got together. I think this is super sweet. So so y'all were talking on the Discord server. Jonathan, you were into her artwork, and how did that kind of relationship start to blossom a bit?
Well, it's simple, really. We just started speaking to each other one-on-one because I think we sort of just realized, wow, we have a lot in common in terms of just our opinions on stuff and our interests in even other pieces of media, because certainly Earthbound isn't the only thing we mutually enjoy. But
for sure,
regardless, yeah, we just sort of started speaking really often, and eventually that led to Kody saying that she liked me in that way, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And yeah, and eventually that has led to this year I got to travel to the United States to finally stay with her, and that was really nice, and I plan on coming back, of course, but
yeah, I would like to visit Australia at some point as well. I know it's more, for Jonathan, it's more of a priority to come visit the United States again, but I would definitely like to visit him in Australia as well at some point.
Yeah, I will say I've thought about this a lot, but it's just very funny how Earthbound probably to a lot of people was seen as obviously as a very Japanese game, but also a very American game specifically, and it makes sense considering Earthbound never was released in Europe or Australia until 2013. But it is nice now that there's fans from all over the world, really, thanks to the games getting, or at least the first two games getting worldwide releases. I don't think that's quite something you would see nearly as often back in the 2000s.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's that interesting ripple effect. I think it's so interesting how this game, more than most games I've ever even covered on this show, have that kind of longevity and that ripple effect. So you have, because I saw that video of you guys together, and then when I realized you guys are so far apart, I'm like, wow, this game really crossed the country, crossed the globe, basically.
Yeah, we're basically
literally.
as far away from each other as possible. When Jonathan flew over here, his flight was over a day.
Yeah. And how long were you able to visit for?
2.5 weeks, but
okay.
Hopefully next time it'll be a little longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, next time you plan on staying for longer.
Yeah.
That's super cool. That's great, and it's awesome that you'd be able to keep things going and keep the relationship going. But I just, again, not trying to insert too much into it, but since y'all started out with an online relationship, I wonder if it's maybe a little easier for you to maintain it in that way.
Definitely.
Because you started that way.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I think there's with online or long distance relationships, I think there's like a lot of challenges that come with that. But since that's how our relationship began, it's kind of what we're used to, I think. And we call a lot on Discord, for instance, like we're always talking and stuff. So Jonathan never feels too far away, but I think for a lot of people that's really challenging, and it's especially difficult to maintain that for a long time when you're not able to see your partner a lot. But since we met through like conversations online, it doesn't feel too difficult or unnatural, to me at least.
Yeah, same here. And it's also just the knowledge that, hey, even if we're far away right now, there's always the future to look forward to, which I suppose is thematically fitting with at least a couple of the mother games.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And again, the connection coming from the game itself and from the community that it created and is continuing to create looks like it really did some amazing stuff here, and that's really, really cool. I'd love to also chat with you a little bit about the community in general of Earthbound. Obviously, y'all had you guys obviously got together via the community. Were you on starmen.net or or was it just a Discord?
Well, I can say we were definitely past the time of starmen.net being like the hub of the mother community. But yeah, we spoke mostly through Twitter and that server we mentioned before, and that just led to us just speaking privately. And yeah, we'll still be around occasionally and stuff on Twitter and interacting with the community sometimes, because I know for one thing, for me, I try not to be too active in the community because I don't want to be overbearing to anyone who thinks I'm a know-it-all about the mother games. But yeah, I definitely will say I do respect all those older communities and stuff like starmen.net that were able to forge through the difficult times of no re-releases on the games and very little new merchandise and whatnot. Because comparing to what we have now, I think the mother fandom kind of has a lot more going for it at the moment.
Yeah, and I've always liked to like lurk around on Starman. I love looking at old posts on there and stuff, but I've never been an active member of their community. I've kind of just, like I said, I was sort of a lurker, but I was able to find that community through Twitter and also through like Discord servers I had joined. And nowadays I don't feel like too active within the community. I'm not as like completely obsessed with the Mother series as I was a couple years ago. I think like I'm just like I'm just normally interested in them now. I was saying before, like, because I used to be at a point where it was just like all I thought about, you know, it was just my world was kind of revolving around it, and it played such a big part in my identity. But I feel like I've kind of branched out a little bit and stepped away from that as I've gotten older. But it is still like a huge part of my life. You know, I couldn't imagine myself without it. And obviously, like, I met Jonathan through it. Like, if it weren't for the Mother series, I would never have met Jonathan, probably. So there's just a lot that I owe to that community, even if I don't feel like I'm the most active there right now, currently.
That's very sweet. It's a very sweet sentiment, and I think that it lends itself again to how robust that community is, and how I love the fact that it's growing. I always forget Starman's not really very active anymore. Again, this is me being old, so I'll blame it on the age, That's what I'll
Yeah.
do. And
I mean, I'm
Well,
sure there still is like a small, like there definitely is
there
an
is.
active community there still, but I sort of view it more as like a relic of the past than like an yeah.
Yeah, and I am glad to say at least like there are spiritual successors to stuff like Starman.net, because if you've ever read through Mother Forever, which I'm sure you have because I know you know Kody Nokolo, but yeah, that website is just jam-packed with like information on all the Mother games and is definitely an amazing resource for new fans and old fans, I feel. So I don't think the Mother fan base is any less dedicated.
Yeah, and in fact, I would say it's like only gotten more dedicated, and like we've only seen more people join ever since I really became interested in this series. It's only gotten bigger over time, and not like you might expect with a series that begins to age, you might expect the opposite of people starting to drop off. And there definitely are people like dropping off who aren't interested in anymore, but there are a lot of new people who come in all the time who are like equally as captivated.
And I think that is the magic of these Mother games. And hey, there's always a lot of people who, and I think this could even apply to me and Katie to an extent, that even though at some points in our lives the Mother series might sort of fall into the background, it might just return as a fixation at different points, because it's definitely happened for both of us where it's like, you know, we've gotten interested and focused on other things, but we've then rebounded to being back like really obsessively on the Mother games. And yeah, I do think that speaks volumes about just how special these games are.
I love that. That's a really great way to kind of close it out. That's, guys, I really appreciate that. This is awesome. This is so good. Any quick final thoughts before we wrap it up? And again, if this seems short, again, this episode's going to have 2 other conversations on it, and I don't want them to be
No worries.
a thing. But any other like quick little final thoughts on the game before we close up?
Well, I'll just say, you know, to all those Mother fans out there still enjoying the games, just know that these games are really special, and there's just so much to talk about. There's so much to look into, and be grateful that you got to experience a really good series of games.
Yeah, and
that's what I'll say.
Yeah, and for me, it's just really amazing seeing like the profound impact it's had on so many other people as well. Like to me, it's always been really clear why this series has had such a huge like cult following and fan community, because it really touched me and inspired me in a lot of ways. And it's really amazing seeing it do the same for so many other people out there, and especially like being able to make connections through that is absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of A Gamer Looks at 40, and quadruple thank you if you've listened to the entire Earthbound series, and a million thank yous if you've been with this show since the very beginning. Your listenership is greatly appreciated as always. Coming up next week, we're going to do a side quest episode. It's been a while. All the people that you've heard on this show have other stories and introductions to games, and a few of the people on this episode specifically were talking about their content creation. I'm gonna take all that stuff and put it into one of my side quest episodes. Should be a lot of fun to hear the origin stories of the people that you've been listening to for the last month and change. Thanks again for listening to the show. If you haven't done so already, find me on Twitter at AGamerLooks440. I've also have a link tree in the bio that takes you to all the socials, TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all that fun stuff. Thank you very much to Pete Harney and Kev from the Discord for helping me edit the interviews. Thanks again to my patrons for their financial support. And thank you for listening to A Gamer Looks at 40. There are a million things you could be doing at this very moment, and you're choosing to spend that with me. I never, ever take that for granted. Thanks again for checking out the episode, and until next time, take a coffee break. You have earned it.